What's up, traders, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a name that has seen one of the most brutal drops of the earnings season, and that is the trade desk. After a jaw-dropping 32% sell-off after earnings, a lot of people are asking, is this thing finished? Well, here at Uplift Markets, we see a massive opportunity. In this video, we're doing a full technical analysis of the stock, breaking down the key levels across all timeframes, and giving you our analysis with price targets for 2025, and what we believe is headed next. So, let's get started. Now, first of all, let's analyze why the stock is down 32% ever since the earnings. Well, the stock reported Q2 revenues of around $694 million, up 19% year over year. The company did expect next quarter revenue to be around $717 million, close to analyst estimates. Now, its non-GAAP profit of around 41 cents per share was in line with analyst consensus estimates. Now, some key highlights here was that their overall adjusted operating income was around $245 million versus the analyst estimates around $102 million, which is a nice beat here. We all see the revenue guidance for Q3 is around $717 million at the midpoint here of the overall analyst estimates. As well here, the operating margin is around 16%, 16.8%. We can round it up to 17%, which is in line with the same quarter last year, showing here some deficiencies here in the overall way they operating the company. As well here, the market cap is still around $26 billion here for the company. Now, something to note here is that CEO Jeff Green noted that some large advertising categories, especially auto and consumer packaged goods, experienced volatility due to tariff and macroeconomic pressures, which did create short-term challenges in spend allocation across the overall platform. Now let's move on towards the technical part of the analysis. We'll be starting off with the daily chart and slowly moving towards the less and micro price action of around the 30-minute chart here. So as you can see, first of all, we're on the daily chart. The stock is below the 50 EMA, this yellow line, and below the 200 EMA, showing that on average, the sellers are winning and are in the money. We see these high volume candles here showing before the earnings that the sellers were starting to become more active as soon as we got above the overall 200 EMA, showing that there was no buyers here and the sellers were actually looking to sell aggressively before their earnings, and we saw this big drop here if you measure it now around 37%, which is a little bit more dramatic. And if we can see here, the stock is overall still looking pretty bullish here. Some sellers are still in control. If we hear and take analysis here on this swing high anchored VWAP here, the sellers that initiated this downward move, right? Because if you take into account, before this day, we were in an uptrend ever since January of 2024. We're moving up, intense upside here ever since we found this top around $140 that we found on around December 11th of 2024 here before their earnings. And it was quite, astonishing to see that, there's been an overall underperformance here of around, now the stock is down from those highs, 62%, which, pretty aggressive here, right? So something I want to reiterate here is that we are well below this, swing high anchored VWAP. The sellers are still in control, below the 200 and below the 50. But now something I want to reiterate here is that, we're seeing some areas of support here, right? We're kind of seeing some zoning out here at some levels around this overall $51 zone. We see that, there's some price action, refusing to go down lower, right? And I believe that if the stock does fail this level here of around $50, which is area of support, I do believe the stock's going to be finding some area of support, and some buyers at this key level here of $42 here. And what I mean by this is because this was a prior area of support where we found this bounce towards April 7 lows. Now, after looking at the daily, let's zoom in towards the 2-hourly chart here. As you can see, the stock is still below the 50 EMA, but something I would like to see here on the stock is, a break above the 50 EMA. And what I mean is this level here, right? I would like to see some price action, right? Some candles, like these green ones, obviously not to scale, but we do find buyers finally, breaking above this area of resistance that has been the 50 EMA ever since the earnings, right? We've just been below it the whole time. If we can clear this key area of supply, I do see the stock going all the way up towards this area of resistance of around $65, which I believe will form confluence here with the 200 MA that you guys are seeing here on my chart with this black dotted line here. As you can see here, the stock has more upside here towards, around 16% here, around, entry of around $56 all the way to the price target that we have here, the initial price target towards $65 here and 80 cents. Now, something that has really caught my eye here is that looking at the hourly chart here, we see that the RSI has been oversold here, ever since the earnings. And this is just more confluence that this $50 level is actually finding buyers, and this general zone is acting as an overall area of support here. Ever since this overall lows, we've been seeing nothing but higher lows on the stock. And actually, we broke above the 50 MA here on the hourly high, right? We saw some very nice buyers, and actually we held above it. And I think we're coming back to retest this 50 MA to now act as an area of support here after we bounce well above it. As always, though, it's very nice to see the upside potential. But what is the downside risk here? Furthermore, if the stock does fail to, reject this level and does not, find buyers at this key area of $50, we will see buyers at $42. And if that fails to hold here, right, we will see some support towards the next area of $32. Now, you may be asking, how did you come up with this level? Well, simply by, zooming out, right? When we're in doubt, we have to zoom out here, and we have to look all the way, to this next area of support, all the way to this prior area of resistance, which should now act as an area of overall support, right? And it's going to be here the levels of April of the year 2020, which is going to be the key level of $32. Now, I'm not saying that the stock will decline all the way to these levels, but we always have to take into consideration the risk management, and that the stock always has a potential for downside move. And there you have it. With the trade desk being down 32% overall after earnings and around 50% year to date, we see that the stock is finally catching some support, with the RSI here being at the overall oversold, seeing that we are seeing a bounce, and the RSI crossing above the overall 14 EMA here on the RSI, and higher highs. We're seeing that the stock is finally catching a bounce, with a key price target towards the levels of $65, and if that does not occur, we see some overall support levels towards $43, and the last level towards $32.19. Apart from that, if you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and as always, don't let the markets whip you guys out. I'll see you guys on the next one.